All right. Here we are once again, the Rebel's Edge. It's August. We got through a massive, unbelievably powerful move in July, along with volumes that were off the charts. But now it's a new month. It's August 1st. It's Tuesday. I got my man Marc LoPresti right across there. He's looking dapper as always. I mean, it's amazing. The guy.
I try, Pete. I do what I can. When you get to be my age, it was a birthday
Your age.
Yesterday.
Yeah. Let me tell you something. I was one of the guys probably picking on you because you're a lot younger than me.
I wish I was feeling that much younger, though. I don't know. I think I got to do more Rebel's Edge. It keeps me young.
Yeah, it does. John is once again traveling, and we feel so bad for him, don't we, Mark? I mean, he's only spent about 6-7 days down there in Barbados doing God knows what. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, there's a lot of rum.
It's an undisclosed location. You just disclosed it.
I'm disclosing it. Yes, he was out there having a ball, having a great time. Well, it was pretty easy because there was a lot of stuff he put up on social media where I'm like, yeah, well, that's pretty much a tip.
Yeah, it wasn't much of a Where's Waldo game, but that's a whole other conversation. We'll have to drag it back and do 20 questions.
It's always a great question. However, every day of his life is, where is John Najarian? I'm I'm either in Florida or I'm in Minnesota. I'm back in Minnesota today, just got back and excited about that because it's been hot as all get out down there, as it always is in the summer. But it's a nice break to get up here, Mark. I got a lot going on. I've got a bunch of charity things that I'm doing. I'm doing some stuff with the Golden Gopher football team as well, and I'm going to be there with their opening game against Nebraska, the tail end of August, basically. They got the state fair. A lot of things going on. My wife's birthday, my wedding anniversary. I mean, this is a big month.
Well, please wish Luby a very, very happy birthday, and congratulations on making it another year around the sun as your better half. That is a full-time job.
Yeah, I don't know how anybody could do that with me because I'm a nightmare. But anyway, not really. Actually, I'm pretty easy going. All right, Mark, let's jump into it. We know what we're doing. We're excited about the macro minute, and I'm going to hit you with this. Take a look at the 10-year. I bring it up all the time, but take a look at the 10-year. We went over 4. What happens when we go over 4? People start turning and starting to sell a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. If it wasn't for Caterpillar right now, the Dow would be down significantly. Last I looked, Caterpillar was up about 7-8%, something close to that. And most of the rest of the Dow in negative territory. The NASDAQ's been negative almost the entire day. So the 10-year is my deal. That 4%, that's when people say sell.
Yeah, no doubt. And listen, sell in May and go away has not worked this summer. If you did that, you stayed out of a lot of the action. And it was very interesting. It's important to point out that CAT is probably the single largest catalyst, let's use the pun, to the upside, because otherwise we ended July very, very, very strong, across all the major indices.
Yeah, and I'll say this, Mark. I've never been a fan of that expression. I heard it a lot. I heard traders say it. They were wrong. I've heard the public say it. They've been wrong. I've sat next to guys on TV who say it. They've always been wrong. I'm telling you, the sell in May and go away. You know what? That's it maybe used to be working in the 70s, maybe the 80s, but most of us weren't trading then. So let's be honest, it has been something that is very rare, actually. But anyway, now let's jump onto the fantastic futures, because I'll tell you.
Fantastic futures!
Absolutely fantastic. I'm telling you, Jared is the man. He is the man. And I'm sorry I didn't introduce him earlier, but he does all of the great sound effects, all the great stuff. Fantastic.
Next time we do this segment, I want you to rip your shirt open and have a big F or two Fs, like full Superman like style. Just
I might have to put CME across me, if they are on board, we'll see how that goes. That's the futures capital. My quick thing with futures is this, and another thing that, I've been pounding the table because it's something that worked back when we actually changed the presidency over several years ago now. But energy and Mark, when you look at crude oil, it was 68 not that terribly long ago. Then it started making the move, and this move has been exactly the way you'd want it to be if you wanted it to go higher. 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step. So where are we now? Well, that's brought us all the way to the point where today we're about 81.50. Yesterday, we hit 82. And I don't know that it's done yet, Mark, with the 2 million barrels that the OPEC folks have yanked away from things. I think we're going to see the mid 80s. I've been saying that for a while, and I continue to say it.
Yeah, it's interesting. What does that tell us about the direction of the economy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, industrial activity tends to drive demand and corresponding increase in fuel prices. And I knew that 60 range, that 60 and change handle was not going to last very long. But I don't know that I expected it to turn quite this quickly. This is an important one to keep an eye on.
It is. It is. I think it's very important. Now we're going to jump into the big boys. We already hit on it for a second, but you look at Caterpillar, you look at those numbers, Mark, absolutely extraordinary. I mean, you look at the earnings, they crushed it, absolutely crushed it. You look at revenue, they crushed it, 17+ billion in revenue. Across the board, their operating margins, 21%. They were looking for 13.5. I mean,
what a blowout.
There is nothing you can look at about that report that looks negative. And I would also say this. How about the fact that they've run? They're at 52-week highs today, and it's trading at a 15 forward PE. This is a company. Oh, and by the way, the Magnificent Six, I continue to push against those guys, Mark, because it's not 6 stocks. Look at Caterpillar and how that's been driving the markets. Look at the builders, how that's been driving the markets, the airlines, the cruise ships overall. I mean, across the board, things are actually moving to the upside. It's not just 6 stocks.
And, the Caterpillar numbers, I mean, that profit margin, doubling the strength of their operating margin, that is tremendous. And we've said a lot on this show and others that the market is really rewarding companies that can get their expenses in check and improve those margins. So that was just an absolute blowout number that jumped off the page at me. The other thing that I thought was really interesting was energy and transportation, or I should say the other way, transportation and energy being 2 of their business segments that were responsible for almost 30% of that growth. And that coupled with what we just covered in the Fantastic Future segment in terms of the direction of oil leads me to think, are we drilling more? Is demand going to crop up? That is certainly what's implied by the growth in that energy segment of Caterpillar's business. I always love tying some of these themes together to help find, the trail from the breadcrumbs. And that was a very interesting part of their earnings report for me.
And as many of my friends from North Dakota and Texas will tell you, drill, baby, drill. Anyway, next on, we're going to go to Zebra Technologies. Now, this one's pretty interesting, Mark, because of what they delivered, which was pretty awful. Their sales were down 17%. That's not good. And one thing that you and I and John, we always talk about this when we're analyzing stocks. You can have a great quarter, which they did not, but you could have a great quarter that suddenly you see the stock getting sold off, and all you've got to do is say, all right, what did they say about the outlook? What did they say? Zebra had a terrible quarter, and they talked about the outlook not being so great either. So it's a combination of a lot of things. That's why the stock's down 18%. It had a great run this year, but it's down to 250s today. The range this year is 2.25 up to about 355, and here we are now at about 250. This is a stock under some serious pressure today.
Yeah, and I think it's going to remain under some serious pressure. I mean, these guys do a lot of retail and point of sale type stuff, barcode scanning, one of their main business areas. And like a lot of what's driven earnings, not just in this Q2 earnings season, but in the last several quarters, it's that forward guidance that everybody is so concerned about and really picking apart and hanging on every word. I think this one's going to remain under pressure. This is a stay away name in my book, Pete.
Yeah, and here's another great example of what we were just talking about, Norwegian Cruise Line. So this is one of these names that's had a great run, right? I mean, year to date, it was up 80%, Mark. You know what that always tells me? You better be right on everything. You better be great on everything, or they're going to say, you know what? Sold to you. Well,
absolutely.
Today they're saying sold to you or anybody who's willing to buy. And the shorts have been mostly right, but those short squeezes, Mark, have absolutely given the reason why it's up 80% as well. I think a lot of that can be contributed to that. They beat on the top. They beat on the bottom. That doesn't sound so bad. The guidance, not so good. They're looking at 70 cents, but they were looking for 80 cents. So the problem is you don't get the guidance. They're going to blackball you. They're going to sell you. They're going to hit you. And that bad guidance is truly the kiss of death. And that's what's happening to Norwegian cruise lines today. If we see call buying come back in here, though, Mark, I'll be looking for a squeeze once again. But we aren't seeing it today. That's for sure. Down 13%.
And I wouldn't hold my breath for it, Pete. There's a couple of things at play here with these numbers. Number one, there has been a pattern during this earnings season of punishing the companies that beat both the top and the bottom. This is no exception, and it has a lot to do with names that have been bid up a lot, like Norwegian has and some of the other tech darlings in recent months. The other thing here, in my opinion, is what does this tell us about the travel industry? The airlines have been on an absolute tear. We're on Summer of George, the sequel, my Seinfeldian reference to one of my favorite Seinfeld episodes where, Costanza said, this is going to be my summer. It was right after his fiance died from licking those poison envelopes, as some viewers may remember. And not that I'm recommending that, but, I thought the Summer of George was last year. It couldn't continue. I was totally wrong. Consumer spending every last discretionary dollar or credit card dollar on travel, on leisure travel. That was not, there's no way that could continue. And I think that the guidance we got from Norwegian confirms that for me, that Summer of George is over, that discretionary travel spend is not going to continue. And particularly as we go into that really dull time for airlines and travel, which is after the summer and before the holidays. So not surprised to see this guidance and to see this stock getting beat up pretty good today.
And to play off of what you just were talking about as well, Mark, I mean, when you're looking at what's been happening in that world of travel and people willing to pay up for travel, whatever it might be, specifically the airlines, but also going on the cruise ships, let me tell you something. This credit card debt is going through the roof, along with the housing debt, along with student debt, all these things. People just seem to think like, well, they're never going to come after me because they've heard it from the president in one particular instance. But I mean, that is a problem. People are not afraid to have this debt on right now, and that's going to be scary at some point.
And Pete, that combined with something we're going to cover later on Bulls, Bears, and Blockchain, there was a report that came out this morning that the average American, 43% plus of the American population of adults, has less than $1,000 in the bank. That is a mind-blowing and scary figure.
Yeah, especially when you've got the debt we've got, and especially when you look around, a lot of people still don't necessarily want to go back to work in some cases. So, yeah, we got a lot going on. The last one I want to hit is Arista Networks. Now, this one is interesting because you take a look at this stock, it absolutely also, like Caterpillar, 52-week highs today and hit 180, might even be higher than that right now. I have no idea.
187.25 right now.
Oh my goodness, this thing is on fire. I mean, that is a rocket ship. And here's why though, Mark. You come out and you get the CEO and he says, I'm going to quote you, 2023, our outlook year-over-year growth, we're looking at 30%. I mean, when you say something like that, people are going to react, and they're reacting today, and we're seeing it in Arista. But I wanted to jump to this. You've got a little something special. We got a bonus today, guys. It's not just 4 stocks. This is number 5, and Mark's got something for you. So what do you got, Mark?
Yeah, well, I'm talking, Pete, of course, about Coinbase, COIN. It is up from the day low so far. The low on the day was 89.23. That was this morning, just after the open. The stock trading now 93.11 down, just shy of 6%. This is a stock we've been following very closely. We trade this one. We shared both on this show and on B3 an options put straddle that John and I put on a couple of weeks ago that we shared with our audience because of a few things. One, we saw unprecedented selling on the part of Brian Armstrong, CEO. Gary Gensler coming back to the well in Congress a week and change ago, looking for another $110 million in enforcement, specifically for cryptocurrency and crypto-related enforcement after a complete tear that he's been on with that so far this year, combined with a lot of rumors that we're hearing that staking and Coinbase's staking platform may be the next thing in the regulatory crosshairs. And then the news driving the stock down this morning was, of course, the judge in the Terra Labs case ruling yesterday in the Southern District of New York that Ripple win that was handed to Ripple a couple of weeks ago in their case against the SEC really did not apply, did not have sufficient authority to apply, and that most of these things do look like securities. That bad news for Coinbase. Coinbase, of course, for those that celebrate, announcing earnings on Thursday, August the 3rd. So we took some profits on that trade this morning very happily, Pete. And I will point out, we did have a little bit of significant unusual from the Market Rebellion side this morning. August 82 puts. Not a huge trade, but that is a significant downside bet.
Yeah, on a stock that has made a tremendous run before that. All right, we're going to jump to some sports now, guys. I think it's going to be exciting, and here's what we're going to hit. Hard Knocks starts 1 week from today. And what team did they to choose? Oh, it was the New York Jets. And why would you do that? Well, you've got one of the biggest names in football as far as some of these quarterbacks go, and it's really impressive. So here's what we're looking at for Hard Knocks. Netflix. Oh, I'm hearing something. Am I hearing something kind of crazy going on? So with Hard Knocks, Netflix has their own thing, right, called Quarterback. And it's been great. And I've watched the entire thing at this point now. And it was phenomenal because you got to see 3 different quarterbacks, 3 different types of approaches to the game, how they do it, a little bit of playing to the camera and everything else. But Pat Mahomes, you actually can grow a huge appreciation for how much work it takes, film it takes to study and to do everything that those guys do as a quarterback. All they've got to do is see a guy lined up just a little bit different than normal, and they're going to know it, and they're going to pick it out, and they're going to audible to a different play. It's just phenomenal to watch. So anybody who hasn't seen that, I'd say watch it. Hard Knocks is fun. It's the whole team, and it's everybody. But we all know it's Aaron Rodgers, right? I mean, Aaron Rodgers is the guy. He's made this move, and he didn't disappoint at all because what did he do yesterday, I think it was? He went after Sean Payton, which I agree with, by the way, and I'll tell you why in a second. But he went after Sean Payton for criticizing last year's coach, Nathaniel Hackett, who got fired, right? Now, if you're the coach, Payton, why do you even go there? Don't you, Mark, if you were his legal staff, wouldn't you say to him, hey, you know what, just avoid those questions. Somebody asks you about last year, just say that's last year, this is this year, this is this year's team, and blah, 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 right? I mean, it seems to me that it's that simple. But the reality is, Rodgers went after him and said he was attacking the wrong guy. He made a huge mistake. Nathaniel Hackett is actually a great coach, great person, great this, great that. And he went after him pretty good about how classless he felt like some of that commentary was. So I think we're going to see a lot of that on Hard Knocks, and we're going to see a whole lot more. But what do you think, Mark? Are you a fan of Hard Knocks? Have you been watching it over the years? It's been going for a while.
I have not been a fan. I've caught a couple episodes, and I want you to comment on something I learned the other day. Participation is not optional on the part of these teams.
Right.
And I've heard some rumors coming out of the Jets camp that one quote, not attributed to any particular member of the organization, saying that's going to have some consequences in terms of what you see in the programming. And look, that maybe that's just what the producers in HBO are looking for here, right? Mm-hmm. That maximum drama. Yeah. But that's got to have some impact potentially on a team's reputation and franchise value.
Yeah. Well, Mark, I'd add to that. You're 100% right. And the Jets did not want it. They did not want it. And you know what? That was true of all the teams. And there's a criteria that they've got in place of what teams are even eligible to go on Hard Knocks. But I think the NFL has enough power. They can kind of say, hey, look, you're going to be on Hard Knocks whether you like it or not. Just, you're going to have to play it however you want to play it. And I think that's probably right. I think it's great for people at home to be able to see sort of inside the locker room. What are these guys like? What is their life like during camp and all that kind of stuff? I mean, I think the fans really want to see as much as they humanly possibly can get their hands on when it comes to the NFL. I mean, that's why they got the big bucks, right? I mean, you look at those TV contracts, they're there for a reason. They even do it at the college level, by the way. I've seen Alabama. I've seen a lot of different schools that have done it. And I think it's pretty cool, Mark. We're going to jump on to number 2 in the NFL. And number 2 is this. We got a game kicking off on Thursday, the Hall of Fame game. We got the New York Jets. Now, this is obviously preseason, but you got the New York Jets and the Cleveland Browns. Here's why it's interesting. One, it's Hard Knocks following them there, right? That's number one. And it's the Hall of Fame. You'll have the Hall of Fame speeches, all the guys that are going in, all that kind of stuff previous to this whole thing. But you've got the game. That should be pretty cool. You got the Jets. You got Aaron Rodgers. But you've also got Deshaun Watson. And you've got the Cleveland Browns, and you've got a team that has built themselves into something that could be. Now, last year, Deshaun Watson had no shot. And I'm not saying he deserved it or not, but he had no shot. He was suspended, I think, the first 8 games, tried to play a little bit, blah, blah, blah. We all know the story. This year, it's a fresh start, and they actually get the opportunity to show what he can do at quarterback. And this is a guy who was great at Clemson, did very well at Houston, had all this off the field issues, and we all have our opinions on that. But I will say this, he's a heck of a quarterback, and he's got some great tools around him. He's got some running backs, a great offensive line. He's got Myles Garrett on the defensive side, along with a great defense. So, Mark, are you excited that Thursday is the kickoff of the NFL season?
Well, apart from the fact that it makes me think I need to start taking the Christmas decorations out, because not only is summer probably over, but we're just fast forwarding right to the holidays. That just seems
Thanksgiving.
It seems like, right. You know, I'm going to get the turkey fryer out. That always ends very sadly in my house. It's a whole other conversation. I am excited about this game. This is a very, very interesting matchup. I think a lot of folks are going to be watching to see how this bodes for the regular season. Football in August, I still have an issue. I know it's preseason, but I can't wrap my head around it. But since it's my hometown Jets, I'm coming to you live from the great Garden State of New Jersey. Awesome. I will be watching. We will be enjoying, I'm sure. And then, of course, we'll cover it ex post on Rebel's Edge.
Absolutely. It's going to be fun. It's exciting. I mean, they've got Nick Chubb, they got Amari Cooper, they got Zadarius Smith, they got Myles Garrett. I mean, they've got a lot of pieces to a puzzle if you're the Cleveland Browns, and those fans are great, Mark. I mean, there's great fans in the NFL in every single stadium, but as a group, you've got Buffalo. I'd put them close to number one. Kansas City's very high up there. It's the loudest stadium in all of football, college or pro. I mean, it's amazing, but Cleveland ain't far behind. I mean, the dog pound, when I played there a couple of times, I think 3 times I got to play in Cleveland, they throw those dog biscuits at your helmet and everything. You always got to keep your helmet on. I mean, it's classic. The dog pound is well worth it. Well, Mark, thanks so much for joining me today. I know John's busy. He's traveling. He's always doing something, but really, really appreciate you stepping up to the plate. Great trade with Coinbase. That's exactly why folks should tune in. We talk about real stocks. We give opinions. We do trades. We're not just, hanging out, just always talking about a high and a low. We're actually giving you some information that you can use to try to figure out what you may want to do. And it's interesting in that Coinbase, nicely done. Very, very nicely done. And we're seeing Bitcoin slide. So I think that's the hanging on to those things, pulling a little bit more south as well. Folks, we really appreciate you tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow.